Hello? Can everyone hear me? Can people hear? Whoa. Right, well, I'm gonna get started. I need to know if anybody can hear me. So if you're in the chat, give me a hello. This is my first time streaming, so it's gonna be a little bit wonky, but we're gonna do our best. This is me. You can see me wiggling around. It's so cool. Right. As I say, this is going to be a little bit of a wonk, because I've never done this before, so it's good to have a faff. Hey! Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, let me know if you can hear me. I know that it's going to have a bit of a delay, but it would be really nice. It's so fun. This is what we're going to be working on today. As you can see, the line art on here is real shoddy. That's because this is actually a pencil drawing, as I'm trying something a little bit new. I'm working out with a pencil drawing, and I'm going to see if I can clean up as we go. Which is okay, because I don't want to do the whole cleanup of this whole thing with you guys here. But I can do just her, and she's what we're going to be focusing on today, because she's going to be real interesting, because she's got this great light source here. She's got fire in the library, which is not safe. Yeah, she got fire in the library. Not safe, not good, but she's kind of a bit of a dipstick, so that's fine. Because I already know what colour she is. I've pulled up one of the old pictures of her here with her friends over their giant city. All these colours look really dark right now, but that's because I've got a few of these levels layers up, just to remind me that I have to do that later. Because what happens when you do art like this is the colours will often grey out as you colour. So I'm just going to pull out this, and if I were to create my new layer, you can call it flat colour on Popcra, because that's her name. She's cute as fuck. There is going to be swearing, I swear, like a sailor. So it's going to look like this kind of colour rather than this darker, but that'll all be fixed with the levels later. But we don't want to do that yet, because we're going to do a little bit of cleanup just to remedy these layers. So we'll get I've got my eraser here on nice stable brush, just flat, basic hard round brush. Comes with every Photoshop ever, because you know what, I'm actually going to leave those, because those are going to look really good later, but we're going to clean up a little bit. Make sure you're on the right layer. We're going to clean up a little bit on... It is magic, so it won't burn the books, hopefully. Except we 100% know that's not the case. She will burn down this library and feel no remorse. No, she will feel remorse, but only because her teachers will scold her for it. Yeah, just a little bit of neaten up. We'll get rid of that. A little bit tidier. Nice little edge. Nice round eyes. Big agoo eyes. She's the cutest one of my little main four, by far. Everyone else is a little bit murder hobo. She's at least trying. She'll burn down a library, but at least she'll feel bad about it. Get rid of some of these slightly odd lines. just these little things that the scanner's picked up that I don't want, little dots and stuff. You see where the line art here is all sketchy from the initial scanning, but that's fine. You know, it doesn't look like there's too many things on her that are problematic. Problematic. Down here, see, this is a great example of things to fix. This is a mess. Look at this. There's lines here that don't need to be here. So we're going to erase this, and that's going to create this lovely little belt buckle on her back. This is her school uniform. Do you think it's comfy? I don't think so. This is going to be a really uptight school. We're gonna... See, when stuff goes in the scanner, sometimes the scanner just picks up very strange little things. And it can just merge stuff together when you don't need it, and it doesn't look like this on the original thing. But the way I've done to get the line art like this is you scan it in, and I always scan in grayscale because I like to make sure that I'm in control of making things black and white. And Photoshop's really good for that. It's got the lovely layers, lovely levels thing you can do, so you can go in and have complete control of where stuff goes in. So here's where the levels are. This little thing here. This is great. As you see, you can really change it, and that's only going to affect the layer that you. It might be changing the darkness of the whole screen, but it's only going to affect the layer that you are over top of when you merge it down. We don't need that. We've already done that. Sometimes I do that a couple times because you just need to faff around and fix it. After that, I'll always hop in to, bring it into Photoshop, mess with the layers, mess with the levels, until you've got the lovely black and white. See, there's a load of tat we don't need. Look at that. Tat up there. I'm not going to clean up too much, just a little while. Just a little bit. Just enough that she's not going to be looking lumpy when we get to colouring her in. I always cheat a bit because what I do is closer to graphic novels. I always made sure that I was never painting. It's a lovely skill, and it's one I really want to learn one day, but I don't paint. So far, I'm best at my brush is so big. Why? I only yep, colours. There. What that's gonna do is just stop colours from. It's also good to words. It's good to go around and just make sure that all the line art matches up, because the way that I colour, I try and cut down on the time as much as possible, because I end up doing, if I'm doing graphic novels, I can't spend hours and hours painting a single image. It's got to look good and look good quite fast, in order for me to get stuff out on time and to get enough done. Ooh, that book down there is a... See, this is what I'm talking about. Look, this is where I've rubbed something out on the pencil drawing, and it has picked up on the tiniest little pencil marks. I will say whatever I want about your boy. He's a little murder. They're all a little murder hobo to start with. All a little bit. They'd get better very quickly, but to start with, I think everyone's a little bit murder hobo when they start playing, because you're trying to feel out with the group what's good and what's not to do. Everyone has to experiment with a starting group. That's just a thing. People have to do it. It's why I always think that the first thing ladies do when they start playing D&D is just lots of crime. Like, women we like to do crime, apparently. We're, all up for burning down orphanages, which is exactly what my first D&D character did. On accident. She didn't mean to, but she did burn down an orphanage. And we stole some children. Just one or two. It was actually two. It was specifically two. We found one who was clearly the magic child that we needed for the plot, and then we just stole this other one because we could. But that taught me a lot about the, group I thought I'd be playing with. Unfortunately, our DM had to skip out because of schoolwork. She was doing some really intense biology course, sort of sped up, so she had no time. So fair on her. Real life comes first. But it was a good session to start with because we were just learning about how to deal with each other as characters. My first character was actually very similar to the lady we're drawing here, Pokra. She was a little, demon-y sorceress lady, but the trick was she was actually just legit from hell. People thought she was a tiefling, and we gave her all the stats of a tiefling. But it was like she was there on... Her dad had grounded her, so she ran off and had gotten stuck on the material plane. Which was a lot of fun, because I got to pretend to call home and talk to my satanic dad and say sorry that I ran off, because I didn't mean to. Oof, this is tricky bit. Get that book right. I'm not going to draw all the pages, because that would make me want to melt. So just those little moments where the book is... Little moments of interest is all you need to do. A lot of people get stuck on really intense detail when they first start drawing and really getting into their drawing, because they think, oh, all the detail that's important, we're going to get that in there. But that doesn't help. What it does is take up a lot of time. A lot of these are folds in skirts, so we're going to leave a lot of them, but just the little spots we're going to get rid of. But yeah, a lot of people, when they start first drawing, get all the detail in there to start with. And they get absorbed in it, and they spend so much time on one piece that it becomes a very slow process for them to learn how to do other things very well. They spend hours and hours colouring one thing, not even hours and hours, days and days. Hours and hours is perfectly normal. Stuff takes a long time. Very long time. But a lot of people, they do get stuck on those details, and they just... good for them in that they've got the focus. I couldn't do it. But I think it does have some kind of detriment in that they can't then also pick up their posing skills, and other stuff like that becomes much slower, because posing is something you just have to do over and over and over again, so you learn the proportions. Alright, I think she's nearly ready to start us with a little bit of colour. Yeah, look at her. Smiling. She knows she's gonna drop that fire. She knows she's gonna burn down that library. It is not even... Yeah, no doubt. She is... All those books she's reading, forbidden knowledge, right? She is in the restricted section of the library, and she's about to burn down thousands of years of hardcore knowledge. So, onto our flat colour layer. See there, it's nice and empty. I like to cheat. I'm gonna grab the colours from here. As I said, I already know what colour she is, and I'm just gonna... Oh, that means... Do you know what that means? I can spot it already. There it is. There's the bit. This is why I like to go around and just fix these little moments where the line art is incomplete, because I like to just select and do. And you don't get them... It's not the most accurate thing to do. If I was, as I say, gonna spend days and days on a piece, I would probably take the time. But this is, this image is something that, I like put on a little postcard or do a nice print of. But if I'm going to spend days and days on something, if it's really important, and I've got this thing in my head that I really need to do something really, really intricate with, I'll take the time. But You know what, what is that? Wonky as hell. So, first time we're gonna erase this whole line and put that in there. There we go. Slightly smoother. You'll hardly tell the difference when I zoom out. You gotta remember the image is about yay big. This is about 1 for 1. There's the ruler. There's the ruler. See up here? That's about 1 centimetre on my screen. Then I know that that's a... Come on, navigator. That is about the size the image will be. Roughly. I'm gonna keep spotting these things, aren't I? Just from now until the end of time. I say I like being fast, but what I like is having those tips and tricks and those little cheaty things so that when I spot something I don't like, I have the time to go back and fix it. There are images in all of my work that I look back on and I think, what on earth was I doing? Because some of it's just, you know, I wish I had the time to fix it, but you don't always have that luxury. So having these tips and tricks really helps because you're not then stuck with the one image. But yeah. Oh, nope, shouldn't have done that. That's her horn. I know what that's supposed to be. Oh. Ooh, also, there's something missing here. Something tells me this should be connected to her head in a sensible manner. Can you imagine actually having horns? That would be awesome. It would be really hard to sleep. You know, I think about it, so, you know, you think about it, like, if I was a tiefling, it would be impossible to sleep because your head would never be able to rest on the pillow, right? It would never be able to. Just, you'd be off in the distance. You are right, 87% of young D&D characters are runaways. Especially the first one. Everyone's first D&D character is some kind of runaway, and I just never stopped. I never stopped making runaways. Because I think people, when they write D&D characters, write a lot of themselves into them. It's just something that happens. You write what you know. And what I know is a lot of, like, outsider feelings. Just because, you know, of, like, bullying and all that nasty stuff. So that's what I bring into a lot of my D&D characters, is this feeling of being slightly outside. But I always make mine, they're fairly powerful, and they're fairly chill people, because that's just who I am. But they're all dealing with these very, you know, at their core, they're lovely, but they're all dealing with some shit. But I think all D&D characters are, if you really analyse them properly, you'd notice that a lot of D&D characters are people's way of dealing with the nonsense in their own lives. And that's healthy. You know, D&D is a great place to deal with that stuff. Because it's nice. D&D is nice. You know. I would never play D&D with someone I wouldn't go on a road trip with. That's the thing. It's like being stuck in a car, but there's also dragons. Right. Just gonna check out her hand, and then I think... Almost. Yeah, up here. See, there's a little... I always have my history on that right-hand side there, because it's just so easy to get to. It's so much easier. I know there's a, you know, there's a shortcut for it, but oftentimes I'll be going back 2 or 3 spaces, and it's nice to see, because there's a nice record of what you were doing. So I can go back to exactly the point where I messed up and fix it. Oop. Oop. Love a pleat. Look a pleat. Pleats are the best. They're really fun to draw, because you just get to draw this big wiggle and then fit all the folds around it. At least that's what I do. That's what I do with most fabric, actually, is it's good to draw the kind of edges. Yeah, what I should be doing is doing this with a... There. Hard round pressure brush. What that means is that it accounts for the pressure in the pen. So the harder I press down, the thicker the line's going to be. but it means that if I want to have these really light lines, see, I can do one little really light lines all the way up to big ones with the same brush. Makes it a lot easier. Whee. Right. I'm gonna zoom out and be like, I'm just gonna do this one last thing, and then I'm gonna be here for another 20 minutes. As is the way of doing art, as I said, all these tips and tricks so that I have time to fix things that are broken. Yeah. Come on out here. Yeah. There we go. She's clean enough now. Smooth out that shoulder. You've got to be extra careful with points where you're drawing the viewer's eye. So in this image, what I've done, and I'll zoom out and show you on the actual image, is, well, I've got her in this sat down on the floor, but what I've done is I've got these beautiful like bookshelves on the side of her, and what that's doing is, as they sort of point down because of the angle, is create this draw the eye effect down to her face, because her face and the fire is sort of the main bit of the image, and then she's got surrounded by all these books, which are going to be so fun to shadow, by the way. I cannot wait to shadow those, because that's going to be good. Because that's going to be really interesting to see where paper catches the light and stuff. But yeah, so I've got this beautiful V shape that bring it down to her, and she's actually, I believe, if I pull down a guide, yeah, her nose is slap bang in the middle of this image. There, right in the middle of her face. That's where she is. Get rid of those, we don't need those. Alright, finally, on to some colours. So we're going to go grab that colour again. We're going to start with her hair, because it's so bright and so fun that it's always wonderful to get that the first thing that I put on this page. Let's get her eyebrows. Everybody needs eyebrows. I should get a t-shirt with that on. Everyone needs eyebrows. Eyebrows and ears. People used to forget to draw them when I was sort of young. People would be drawing things and then they'd not have eyebrows. Like, even more than hands, and people would purposefully forget hands. Because hands are difficult. They're the most difficult thing for a human being to draw. I'm gonna go back to our big, flat, roundy brush. There. Yeah, hands are difficult. They're squishy, and opposable thumbs are the worst. Fingers aren't so bad. Fingers are like bendy tubes, and they only bend in 3 places. What gets people is the palm of the hand and the thumb. That's the really difficult bit, because that's the bit of a hand that is... It can go in a million different ways depending on what you're doing. Nice grey for the horns. You know, she's cute. She's not like bright red horns, bright red tiefling, but nice pretty blue eyes. That's the joy, you know. And I can't wait until I'm drawing her in later comics and stuff, because she's gonna get to do this really cool thing with her hair, and it's a lot of fun. Another great thing about her is that she is all pink, and people rag on pink a lot. I think there's this whole thing with pink as being this super gendered color, and how, you know, there's a lot of like misogyny out there where ladies just can't be pink and powerful, and I like to take one big look at that and go, no. Ladies are all pink and all powerful. You know, this girl's gonna burn down the library on her weekend and get away with it. Girls are also, when they're pink, all unequivocally good at arson. Yeah, look at that. Bright blue eyes. Now, pro tip. When you put something white on an image like this, you don't want to go with pure white. you can go grey down to a sort of lower grey, and what that's going to do is... Oh, we're going to put that up there. There we go. Now the lines are on top of the colours. There we go. What that is going to do is, when you put shadows in, you can also put highlights in white on the white, and it will enable the highlights to actually show up. So because I use not white for highlights, never use white for highlights, another pro tip, and shadows, purple shadows. Well, I mean, it depends on the light you're using. But you want to go purple shadows because it's going to make the image look nice and warm and toasty. Sometimes images can look very grayed out, and that's because when you use white and black for shadows, that's what you're doing. You're essentially just adding grey to an image, covering the colours. But if you use purple, and for this, because obviously the light source is going to be fire, it's going to be these nice bright oranges, it's going to be a soft glow, it's going to be very pretty. And because it's yellow, the opposite of the colour wheel is purple. So we're going to use a nice purple for the shadows on here. Right. Let's do your nice pink little waistcoat. Ooh, that's another one, and I already spotted it. Down here. We're going to use the same colours of this uniform, because the school is cheap. They're at least a little bit skint when it comes to your uniform. Whoop. Yeah. But that's something I love. Something I love doing with characters is creating them and having them outright just defy a bunch of what I believe are unreasonable viewpoints. You know, small pink thing, capable of burning you to death at any moment. Tall, scary lady. Her whole thing is that she just wants to be a good mom. You know, it's my favourite thing to create those sort of contradictory characters against stereotypes. And D&D has a lot of stereotypes in it, you know, especially, you know, when it comes to how certain races behave. I think I surprise people in IDM sometimes because, like, the orcs are never evil, and elves don't exist, and a lot of things that aren't unusual for the genre, but people tend to expect. Goliaths is a great one. Why do Goliaths gotta be big and brutish all the time? I don't like it. I don't like being told what I can and cannot do with a character by a little rule book. Ah, here's this great thing. Right, gold. Gold is great. This is basically orange. This is what I use for gold. Because when you add highlights, what it's going to do is lighten up so much. Because there's a lot of highlighting involved with gold. Especially when you paint it. Because metal stuff does not catch the light like most things. It'll actually move all over. So you get these lovely dark brown spaces. We're gonna do like dark red inside her mouth. Oh, come on, there we go. Dark red inside the mouth. And we're gonna make her even darker than that. We're gonna go, because we want this to kind of disappear, and then we'll go a little bit lighter. We'll go down slightly orange. A little bit lighter for her tongue. There we go. Art is all about drawing the viewer's eye to the right things and getting them to look at the right things. So because she's going to be this bright red little beam slap bang in the middle of this, what is going to be sort of blues and browns, she's going to show up massively, and she's going to be the centerpiece. I had this with an image the other day where I had my bard stood in a field, and I was having real trouble trying to figure out what was wrong with it. And then my sister said, I'm looking too much at the background, and it clicked, and I was just, oh, well, now I know exactly what this is. I just needed to drop the background out slightly, make it darker, and it may not be realistic and accurate and all of that stuff, but it looked better. It looked a lot better. Oh yeah, magic costs a lot. They have to save on the uniforms. It is. She's in one of the fanciest schools in the entire world. You know, she got this scholarship to the fancy school and is spending her time. I mean, she burns down this library a lot. It's gonna happen. They're gonna spend a lot of money on getting this girl her education, because they're gonna burn a lot. She's gonna burn a lot of stuff while she's here. So it's gonna cost a lot to get her through, especially. And there's gotta be, like, there's other kids like her, you know. There's other people burning down the school every other day. And, I mean, they've got magical protection, hopefully. Magical insurance? That's a good character concept. I would like to play a magical insurance man. I would like to be an OSHA operative and go into people's lairs and give them their OSHA violations. That would be my ideal D&D character. Tell people what OSHA violations they're breaking. That would be a lot of fun. You could just go and sass the lich. Oof. Yes, it's yeah, we're gonna bring her hair colour back down here. Into her skirt. Ooh. What's going on there? Ah, you know what? I know what this is. Because I got confused when I was drawing about where her hips started and where her skirt stopped. We're gonna just pull that up there. There we go. Because her skirt is gonna cover the bottom half of this book because of the angle, so she's gonna disappear slightly. Insurance also costs a lot. I mean, they have fairies, so fingers crossed the fairies are keeping up their end of whatever bargain's going on. Get all the little bitch. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully the fairies are keeping up their end of insurance, but you know, you gotta feed fairies and keep them happy, so. A bit like having a magical teacher's assistant, having a fairy as a teacher. Ooh, what colour should we make the book she sat on? She sat on a book. Yeah, she sat on a book. Sat with. What's she reading? What do you think she's reading? I think she's reading Pyromancy for Dummies. Because she thinks she's a dummy. She's not. She's the smartest person in the room 90% of the time. She's a moron. She's complete dipstick, but you know. Not street smart. Book smart. Very book smart. Even with the shirt, I've gone like a darker grey, because I know that the light of this fire here is going to brighten this up considerably, and I want to be able to show that. Yeah. What colour book? Tell me. Yeah, a piece like this usually takes me quite a while, because this is pretty involved. This is fairly involved. Because of all the details on the books, and I try and make every book unique. You know, when I go around and fix up the liner, I'll add detailing all over this thing. Because this is a print. This is going to be a print. It's a standalone image, so I can spend a little bit more time on it. When you're doing comic book pages, you can't do that, because it doesn't really, time-wise, make sense. Well, whatever I do with the, you know, I just grab the white from in her eyeballs for these pages. And we'll go up here into slightly yellow and give it a nice, well-worn, yellowed pages feel. It's an old book. She's reading things she shouldn't be reading. Not that she'll ever use the information she's got. She's got one move. It's called Fireball. You don't need anything else. Oof, look at that crusty book. She's going to be really interesting to shadow too, because the fire is here and it's obviously slightly forwards because it's her left hand. You know, it's sort of in line with this leg here. So the light source in a 3D sense is coming at her almost directly to the side, and that's going to create some really interesting shadows on her face, especially with her nose. Yes, it is definitely to keep herself warm in those cold winter months. She's a tiefling. She doesn't like the cold. I mean, she's a particular kind of tiefling. She doesn't like the cold. You know, there's tieflings of all shapes and sizes that like all different temperatures, and we support them all equally. You know, when hell freezes over is a nice... Ah, that's nice. Look at that. Nice warm brown. Let's make this book blue. There we go. That's gonna... Yeah, nice jewel-toned blue. It's gonna hop out on her, and it's gonna look like she's reading something. Should we? We could go like a cold blue. These are the kind of things that can be fixed later. That's a nice... It'll sort of match her eyes then. Yeah, we'll match her eyes. Then it looks like it's all the same kind of colour palette, but without the strange extra colour. That's another thing about art, is getting those concurrent colours together, which is why I always go for these sort of nice jeweled tones when it comes to painting stuff like this. Because if it's a jewel tone, it'll all work together, it'll all function together. Ooh. Let's gold bookmark. Gold bookmark. Oh, thank you! Hello, Hugh. Nice to meet you. Yeah, gold bookmark, because this place is expensive, so why not? I like to think all these books come from they've just stolen them from other, like, dead wizards that they've sent adventurers to go murder. You know, why write your own book when you could go and get a lich murdered for like 200 gold, and a local adventurer will do it, and steal their books? That is another D&D character I want to make, like... librarian. Good old librarians. Librarians are scary. Never mess with librarians, and never mess with the tavern owner. I always like to think that the tavern owners in D&D realms are like ancient, crazy powerful beings. No one messes with them because they know that if they try, they're gonna get destroyed. You know, they'll just get absolutely wrecked. All the spells have been written by now. Obviously, she's staring towards the camera. Maybe she's been interrupted in the middle of her reading by a teacher. She's just going, I know what you did! I know what this school's bad history is. Now you can't ground me or I'll tell everyone. Ground me. She's not a child. She is actually like low 20s. She just looks very small. The tavern owners are gods in disguise. You get it. 100% gods in disguise. Right. Let's colour in some fire. We're gonna put this on a separate layer though, because it's what I like to call an effect. So it's something that is affecting the image. In this case, the fire is making light. So in regards to colouring, it's going to be coloured in a different way to everything else. Because it makes light, there's going to be no shadows on it. So it's good to get that sort of separated. And I'm gonna do a nice jewelly orange in the middle. Look at that. Little sun. Ready to burn these books down. When I was doing thumbnails for this image, one of the thumbnails was her sort of staring at her teacher, having just it's like this is like the before, and then there's an after image of her having burnt down the library. Oof. Missed a bit. I'm trying to go fast enough so you guys get to see something really cool. I'm gonna... Oof, here's a good thing. Right. Oh! Expando. So. This soft round brush is great for stuff like this. And I'm gonna go in and pick up this orange again. And just create this little gradient gently around this little sun. There. Look at that. So what that's gonna do is make it look a little softer. So it's a soft light, it's not a hard light. She's not got a little sun in her hand. And I'll go in and later on change the colour of these lines so that it merges neatly. It'll look nice. It's a nice thing. And that's that's something that people have to figure out if that's what they like or not with their own artwork. But recently I've started to change the colour of lines more, to drop them out. Right now the lines are very heavy, but near the end I'll drop them out slightly, just lighten them up, about there, about 80%. And what it just does is soften up the image so much. Yeah, see, nice separate layer. So now that she's got all her flat colours done, we're going to go in here and add a skirt colour. There we go. Cover that up. Perfect. So she's got all her flats on now. So the next step is to shadows. And what I do is I tend to do my shadows on several layers. So first layer, I'll do just call it Shadows 1. And I try and use a fairly light, well not light, but fairly about there kind of purple for the lighter things. And I'm going to shade in full purple, and I'm going to shade with these harsh edges, especially up near her face because it's near the fire. And the harder the light, the harsher the shadows. So if I keep my light source in mind, it may be that the shadow sits there, sort of around the cheek. Or it could sit somewhere else. But the trick is shade in complete purple, because what that's going to do is it means you can actually edit the shadows much easier if you're shading in full one colour. You don't have to try and get it all done in one if you're using the opacity up here on the brush to change things. Instead, I use the opacity down here on the layer. So I start out with this full purple and bring the opacity down to where I need it. It means that near the end of the image I can go back in and double check that my shadows are where I want them. But for now, in order to get the shadows completely solid and make sure I don't miss any pieces, I'm going to just shade in solid purple. Gonna go in around her eye, round her cheek. She's got big chubby cheeks, so I gotta keep that in mind when adding her shadows. Big cheek chub. Yeah. Whoop. Big round chubby cheeks. Like a little hamster. She's like a little hamster. She can probably stuff things in there like imps. Pets. Snacks. That's what hamsters do. This is how she stays cute and chubby even though on the road as an adventurer. She just stores the food in her cheeks. Oh yeah. Nice, smooth. All in the while keeping an eye on my light source. So you see the light source is almost on a direct parallel with this. So the shadows aren't going to be up or down, they're just going to be across. And this is what I end up doing a lot, which is going in and then with the slightly too big brush and then erasing what I don't need. It helps you create these much finer points rather than trying to use the tiny brush to do that with. It just doesn't work as well. Oof. Characters like this are a lot of fun to make stuff like puzzles for, because she's smart, but she's a dipstick. Ooh. Under her nose. Here's something interesting, because you don't draw the entire nose. If you were to draw the entire nose, it would be... Yeah, let's rename this layer. Why is it named this? Line art, there we go, that's what's on there. If you were to draw the entire nose, you'd end up with something really heavy, and it would just detract from the entire image. You can imagine that in black line. So I tend to only draw the things that are distinctly important, but you still have to keep in an idea of that shape when drawing shadows. Because the shadows remember that the image is a 3D object. Shadows know that. Shadows know that you're 3D. I'm very wise. She does store spell components in her cheeks. Definitely. That's definitely where she keeps them. There's no other explanation. She doesn't have anywhere else to put them. Whee. Round. Nice and around. Eyeballs are terrible because they are round things in holes that are not round, and humans have to be able to see out of them. See, it looks really heavy right now, but what if I do this, if I drop down there again, see, instantly she looks more 3D. And I'll be able to up and down that depending on how harsh I want it when I've taken into account my lovely light source over here. Beautiful light source. So that's step one. Onto the rest of her. That's her face. Onto the rest of her. Now clothes are much faster. Faces are a nightmare because you're only ever drawing some of it. As I said with noses, you're only ever drawing some of it, so you have to keep in mind where facial structures actually are without actually having the guides to see them. A lot of people draw their own guides and then on a separate layer and drop them out, but because I do all of my line art by hand, I don't have that luxury. I could draw new guides on the computer when I do it, but it would take a long time and I uber cheat right now. This stream is just, here's how lazy I am as an artist. This is definitely how you should always do this. Art tips. Look at that. Colour that in. Saves like 15 minutes. You just get the edges, and what I like to do is then go in and just up that again. Oh, this one hasn't done it. Sometimes what I'll do is when you select, you'll end up with a weird line where the selection has met the edge of the brush. And this is why I always colour in full purple, because you end up with these spots that you miss, and you can easily see them when the colour is much more intense. It's a nice purple. At some point, I should just give her this purple outfit. Oh. Oof. We're even going to get the shadows on this gold here. Shadows affect gold just as much as light as anything else. But light is different when it comes to gold. When it comes to anything metallic, which is really fun for weapons. And by fun, I mean, as an artist, you have to learn like a whole new set of skills. Oof. Gotta remember that little bump in her shirt here. Right here. Little bump. Nice and smooth. Connect that up. Smooth that out. There we go. Because you've always got to keep in mind the shape you're dealing with. So I've got this curve here. So I thought I want to mimic that curve here because that shows that she's got her shoulder slightly up. So there's a curve there. If you're missing that, then the image is going to look a whole lot flatter. Whee! See, here's a great example. She's got these bends here because of the way her arm is folded up. But if I were to ignore those when it came to shading, it would just look flat, it would disappear. So we want to avoid that. Yeah, nice and coloured in. Little things like this are okay to do entirely by hand, but it's only when it comes to big stuff that, like her jacket, that I want to do just cheat with it. I think, apart from the arm and stuff, all the other colours on her are fairly dark, so I'm going to do that on my second shadows layer. Yeah, she will definitely burn this jacket at some point. 100%. This is probably her, 10th uniform. I like to imagine that she just goes through them like wildfire. She can't keep a uniform. The poor people that make the uniforms, they're just used to seeing her. They know her by name by now. You remember those uniform shops? As a kid? You could only ever get your school uniform from one shop. That's mad. Why isn't there just standardized uniforms? Or no uniform at all. Just let kids dress. Let kids dress themselves. They get so little freedom. Let them go nuts. I think kids should be allowed to dye their hair a ridiculous colour at school. You know, in the future they have people to impress and bosses to deal with, and someone is ever in my employ, or if I'm ever a manager somewhere, policy is gonna be dress however you want. Just, who has time? Do teachers seriously have the time to be messing with that stuff and constantly on the back of kids about their uniforms? Do they just do it to entertain themselves? I remember in my school, a bunch of the girls got so fed up of being nagged is the right word, about their skirt lengths, that one day they just didn't go back inside after lunch. We just sat outside in a field for a while as some sort of baby's first protest. We were all 14. And I was always a very good kid. So the teachers did not expect me to be out there with them, but only a couple of days beforehand, one of the not the teachers, she wasn't a teacher, she was sort of a receptionist lady, had physically grabbed me and tried to pull my skirt to an appropriate length. My skirt was perfectly appropriate, it always has been. As I said, I was a good kid. But this lady just decided that it was wrong, so she actually physically grabbed me, so I was sat out in the field with everyone else just hating on the teachers for a while. Oh. Yeah. Up near her finger is going to be really difficult to shade because it's right near that's way too light. So we're going to shade that with something else. But here we have, yeah, nice edge. And these shadows are going to be really harsh, so I'll probably not go in and alter these in any way when I go into tweak the shadows. Because I like to shade as much as possible and then go in with an eraser and sort of go backwards. It's very strange, but I like to go backwards. My sister's trying to talk to me. She's on the phone. I told her to go away. Oh. Oof. I'm just typing in. I'll be back in just a moment. I am having a drink because I've been talking for about an hour now. Solid, which is more than I've talked in a long time. Because I spend so much time sat in my room doing work. I just don't talk. There's no words. I do a lot of typing. I communicate with people. But I don't get a whole lot of chatter. Gotta stay hydrated. Yes. Yes. I got my Arizona tea here. I've got my... How do you say this? It's the fuse tea. Is that how you say it? Because my brain tells me that it's fuzu tea, and that's wrong. But it sounds better. Oof. Look at that. Oh, I sound much better now. My thirst is abated. Go away, history eraser. What do I want you? Because of the way this tablet is, my tablet has these little side panels with buttons on. And I never spent the time to figure out what these buttons do. They'd probably be very useful if I did. But for the most part, I use the keyboard shortcuts. So I don't need them. But every once in a while, I will accidentally lean on it, and it'll just do something to what I was doing on the computer, and won't go back to normal. You know, it's trying to keep my left hand off of those mystery buttons. This gold is nice and simple, because it's just all in shadow. I don't have to worry about colouring this bit. Bye. All purple. Everything is purple now. Yeah, I reckon that's all of the light shadows done. I'm gonna go down here and just get this bit. This is likely going to be in mostly shadow. This bit certainly is. Let's check my light source. Yeah, it's going to just get the top of this, I think, when it comes to the light source. And then this is going to get a bit of here. And we'll do the book. So the book is just going to have this whole... These two sides. Books are good. They're nice and square. You don't have to worry about where the shadows go because everything is square. Ooh, that is the end of a page. Another point where the line art is. Ooh, there we go. I end up doing a lot of shift key because it gets you a lot more accurate, but what it does mean is that I have to remember to switch back whenever I'm trying to see the size of the brush and know what I'm actually painting. I call it painting. I wouldn't call this painting. Painting isn't really what I do. One girl in my degree course really good at digital painting. Takes her forever to do one piece, but she's very good. And I'm very jelly of her skills. I don't have the patience. I got too many ideas to get through. To spend my time digital painting one thing for months. I think I'd just melt if I did. All the stories inside me were just like, I'd get the jitters. I don't drink and I don't do any kind of drugs and I barely drink caffeine. So this is my drug of choice, is just if I just hold a story inside me long enough, I'll get the jitters. I'll get the feeling of being drunk without actual any drink. Ooh, hello, another person. Right now what we're doing, just colouring in. Yeah. I might spot more random things. I don't want to press the buttons to find out what they do, because then I'll ruin what I'm doing. Another drink. It's got a Z rather than an S, so it sounds like fused tea, but is not fused tea. This is wrong. Arizona tea, see, now that's nice and easy to say. Oh. I did make a little list of things to waffle about on stream. I just found a receipt for something I didn't know was in here. Oh, my little notebook is full of surprises. Oh, I bought headphones. That's what it was. I bought headphones. Nice headphones. So I've got my little list here of things to natter about. I'm trying to think what's wrong with this, but it's just because the shadows are really dark right now. See, look at that. It should look like a little 3D object now. It'll look more and more 3D the more and more you do. But yeah, all those light shadows are done. So what I'm going to do is up that again and move on to a new layer. Shadows 2. Now for this is how I shade really dark things. So I'm going to go really dark purple, near black. And that's how I shade stuff like this. Even her hair is dark enough of a colour that if I were to use the other lighter purple, it wouldn't look like shadow. It would lighten it, almost. And we can't have that. It's a shadow. That's what it's for. Yeah, nice dark purple. See, the tone of this colour is actually darker than this black, or at least tricks the human eye into thinking that. So it's going to show up as a proper shadow. And we can start doing her hair is fun to shade because it's all these loopy curly whirlies. And luckily for this, because most of the hair is away from the light source, it's not going to take me forever. Most of this I will just fill. And I'll only have to do the proper shading around this edge before it hits her shoulder and is full. If I run out of things to talk about, I'll just start singing. But this is why we use 2 layers, because this means I can alter this without messing up the shadows I've already done. The more layers the merrier, really, when it comes to digital art, until you're getting to the point where you can't make sense of it. Folders is something I should really learn how to do, but seeing as we are only dealing with the lady today, we don't have to bother with folders. What folders do is just help you sort out where things are, but as we're only colouring her, I only need the layers relevant to her. And that's what I usually do, is I put my folders together in regards to, I'll do a character folder, a background folder, a foreground folder, and it'll be nice and easy to navigate. Or sometimes I just put them all in one and just go nuts. And just see what happens. See what layer goes where. It just becomes a mystery game. Because a bunch of the layers are doing the same thing, just for different objects. Oof. One of the big things that I wanted to waffle about a bit today was... I see a lot of people online struggling with encounter design when it comes to their games, and that's something that I'm fairly decent at. So I wanted to give a little bit of advice about the kind of thing that I do. Shadows to the dankening. That is exactly what this is. That is exactly what we're doing. But yeah, people struggle with their encounter design, and I think it's because people think they have to make these big, complicated rooms with moving parts and all that nonsense. You don't. You really don't. I mean, yeah, doing that once in a while is super fun, and your players will appreciate it most of the time. But really, the big thing you've got to remember to do when it comes to encounter design is having something for everyone to do. And whether that something everyone to do is a big fight, that's fine. But if you've got characters who are not fighting, or aren't needed for healing, or stuff like that, they can get a little bit bored. Sometimes characters, they have different things. So it really depends on the group. But every character has a different thing they're really good at. Look at that. Lovely, lovely little floof of hair. I'm gonna love to... That's gonna have a nice... catch the light slightly, because it's... she's not facing directly towards the camera. Her face is at a slight angle. So certain things are going to pick up certain things. Like the inside of this is going to be all shadow. Having something to do for all of the characters involved. And that's a good way for a DM to sort of think about how to design characters and how to design encounters. Is to think, does everyone here have something to do? Or at least, does everyone here have something to do this game? Because that way you're never going to have someone... No, you know, you don't want to bring someone to a table and they've got nothing to do the whole 4 hours. And sometimes people won't pick up on the stuff you make for them, and they will sit there and bored for a while. But that's their own fault for not paying attention. You can point them in the right direction as much as you can, but you're a human being. DM's a human, unfortunately. So what I like to do when it comes to encounters, to ensure that everyone's got something to do, is to... She's looking so good. Is to stack two things together. So there might be a simple fight happening, but also they're trying to stop someone from pressing a button, or stop someone from throwing someone into some fire. Or there might also be a puzzle happening at the same time as the fight. Or the environment is changing, you know, growing and shrinking lava pools are a really fun one because they're dangerous, characters have to be dodging. It also forces your PCs to move all the time. Just constant motion. So yeah, that's my pro tip for designing encounters. You don't have to think of these big, complicated rooms full of really intense puzzles. The pro tip is just stack two things together, and what it forces your characters to do is to have to think about weight. They have to weigh what's most important in that moment for them to do. And that adds a great element of decision making that means that everyone at the table is engaged in doing something important. So one character might be holding down a switch, while the others fight and defend them. It might be there's a big fight going on, but they also have to solve a puzzle, so they need people at all four corners of the room while they're also keeping the monsters busy. It just creates this element of teamwork and everyone having to be involved. And some characters won't, you know, some characters will... They're just there for the loot, you know, that's fine. That's just how some characters are made. But it does mean that I'd love that to happen, and then for the PC to have to face the consequences of that, because there's you know, you could have been helping, why weren't you helping us? You know, there's going to be consequences to farting around and not helping out the rest of the party. Because if there's enough things to do, then everyone is needed. And the more players you've got, the more things you can lump on. Like, you could stack 3 or 4 encounters into one, and it does mean you need to think of more things, but it's going to add a great variety to what you do. Wee, little quilly whirly. This is what I mean by I tend to go in with a shadow and then cut out with the ruler. Well, not the ruler? This is a ruler. An eraser is a ruler. With the eraser, because you get much better little wiggles. Little wiggles. Best quality wiggles. Yeah. And that's really what D&D is all about, is having a fun time with people at a table. You know, pretending to be dragons and stuff. So making sure everyone engaged is really the DM's biggest thing. And every time someone has told me, oh, I'd love to DM, I've got this great idea for a one-shot, I'm gonna run it, and then they tell me what it is, because I'm you know, fairly well known as a DM, and they tell me this one-shot, and I'm like, is that gonna be fun for your players? You know, great example, one girl wanted to run D&D 5e mixed with One Night Ultimate Werewolf. And that sounds rad as hell, okay? But the problem is that going to be much fun for people who have spent time building characters and are dead after 20 minutes? No, that's not fun for that person. And that was sort of her plan, is that, yeah, I'm going to kill off a bunch of characters right away. I was like, no, girlie, no, don't. It's not going to be entertaining. It's no fun if you turn up to a session, you've built a character you like, and then you're killed after 20 minutes and you can't join in again. You know, if it was some kind of game where she would let people join in immediately with a new character, it would be fine. But her plan didn't consider that. It was just, I'm going to kill a bunch of NPCs right away. We're going to play One Night Ultimate Werewolf, but with D&D, and you're going to have to dungeon some dragons and do some puzzles as you play One Night Ultimate Werewolf. And I would just my brain immediately went to, the first person that gets killed on that first night is going to be done after 20 minutes. They're going to have played their 20 minutes and be killed by everyone else, and then they're going to have to either sit there for a few hours watching their friends have fun, or they're going to have to go home. And you don't want to drag everyone out just for 20 minutes of fun. Yeah. That's my biggest advice to new DMs often, is always have in mind what's going to be the most fun for your players. And yeah, once in a while having some really edgy drama is really good, and that's a lot of fun when people get really into it and they're having a good time, and you know, it's character drama and they understand what's going on. But when it becomes, you know, the odd bit of heaviness, the odd bit of character drama is good. You know, it's a lot of fun because it's a sort of a way to change up the character a bit. You know, if a character's been the same way for months, it's a good way to go back in and go like, hey, here's your chance to reevaluate. Feel free to change up how you play this person. Critical Role is great at this. They do this all the time. Like, best example, Molly Mock dying. Changed everyone so much. It was like wake-up call for everybody. And Bo has become so much nicer since then. It's been wonderful to see. You know, it's sad that Molly had to die in order for that to happen, and I think it would have happened naturally with or without him there, because of just who he was. And I love Caduceus so much. He's so chill. I wish I was Caduceus. I can't wait to meet his siblings. They're going to be such trash. So yeah, the odd bit of character drama is really, really fun, but it's not the whole thing. So you've got to keep in mind what's fun. You know, let your peers Exactly. If your character gets killed in the first 20 minutes, it's a waste of a bus fare. Exactly. Yeah, see? You're just wasting your time after that. Which is why I told her. She ended up not running it in the end, but she's always been that sort of I'll do it, and then never has. But I still love to give her advice because one day she might sit in the seat. This girl who wanted to run the One Night Ultimate Werewolf one, and I told her you'd have to rework. All you'd have to do is rework the game so that characters could come back immediately, or you played it, but only for a bit right at the end of the session. You know, that would be an alright way of doing it. You know, she was just asking me off the top of my head for advice, so I couldn't give her much in depth, but it was, you know, something to point out is just make sure it's fun for your players. Or what's the point? Everyone's there to have a good time. Someone else the other day was talking to me about another game that they wanted to run, and the sort of conceit of it was that a merchant had been sending off all the adventuring parties to the same place. So every once in a while he just put the same thing up on the board and another group of adventurers would go to this cave. And it turned out when the players had gotten through, when they discovered this, that all the loot was just gone. You know, and it was like this whole session would lead up to that one joke of all the loot is gone already, because there's already been adventurers here. The guy who sent you on the quest is just a little bit senile and has forgotten he's already sent adventurers. Yeah, you spend more time making the character than playing them. That's very true. And giving them something to do would be a good idea. My suggestion was either have them take on this sort of ghost role, and they could be ghosts, and it's their job to sort of mess with them, and they kind of become semi-DMs in that they decide what things to push over and that. Something like that. Or there's some kind of weird resurrection stuff happening and they just keep coming back. You know, there's all sorts of stuff you can do. But just leaving them dead was just no fun. And the same with this, hey, we could, you know, all of the characters, it turns out the loot's all gone. My first thought was, yeah, that's funny, but again, is that really fun for the players? To do this quest, get there, and all the loot's gone. You'd have to, my suggestion for that one was plan it so that you got to the loot with about 2 hours to spare. So that you could go back and confront the shopkeeper and demand the loot off of him, and it would turn out that he was secretly sending people out there to get hurt and to do the adventure and to die there to feed his pet or something. Like he's got a big pet manticore in a cave and he's just been sending adventurers there. And that would have been fun. You know, you fight the manticore, find out there's no treasure, go, ooh, what's going on? And discover that he's been sending people there. And then you go back and confront him and it turns out he's this powerful wizardy thing. That was my suggestion, just to leave the players with some kind of sense of triumph. That's the important thing. You know, you can have a lot of back and forth and rocks and stuff in a session, but if you leave the players with a sense of triumph and goodwill, then most of the time they'll tell you they had fun and it's a good session. That's the important thing. You know what? That shadow is wrong. That's too far back. Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. Where you gotta make sure you go in and just check the edges of the selection. be a good one. That would be a good thing. Have other adventurers there and you have to fight them for the treasure. That would be fun. That would be an entertaining thing to do. Because then you've not just sent the party off and they've done the quest and then it's turned out, oh boo, no, nothing was what you thought and this whole thing was pointless. I'm done with pointless quests. At least let me murder the man that stole the treasure. The thing about having other adventuring parties is that's a lot for the DM to juggle. You know, dealing with other adventurers and making them strong enough that, you know, if it's another adventuring team and they're down there, then they must be strong enough to defeat the puzzles on the way. So, how do they defeat the puzzles and then the puzzles all just reset for the next lot? You know, that's a bit of a plot hole. Not that plot holes in D&D are especially awful, you know, it's just people having fun. It's not writing, you know, I'm not writing the next Shakespeare. It's just a bit of a mess around. So plot holes are fine, like that. But if there are, yeah, as I said, if there are adventurers there that are strong enough to get through it, then they're gonna have to be a team, and that's every extra. One of those buttons I was talking about is making things move. I keep nudging it with my elbow. What it is one of them is clearly a shift key, but I don't know which one. So yeah, you get these adventurers, and every single thing you have in battle is another turn that your PCs have to wait to act. Which is why often, you know, the odd horde battle is fine, but you have to treat the horde as a horde rather than a 20 different enemies all at once, because every single turn is a turn that your PCs aren't doing anything. So, which is why D&D is full of these big monsters, because it's a lot more fun for a big monster to go boosh, destroy everything in one turn, and then the PCs just have to survive. That's, you know, that's a lot of fun. That's PCs get to have a lot of impact on what's going on. Angles. Loopy-doopy angles. The shadows is the longest bit of this art process. The light is easy because the light is just various forms of selecting and using that big soft brush to input light. It's nice and easy. The shadows is the sort of longest section of this art process. As soon as the shadows are done, it's going to speed up massively. And we're not too far off. Because the light source is so close, it's a lot. There's a lot of shadows and a lot of the space, especially in her face, is going to be very bright. Look, she's just taken her shoes off. I forgot to put a shoe on her, so I'm just going to pretend her shoes are down here somewhere. She took them off to read in the library. She's like me. She can't stand wearing shoes inside. If I could wear no shoes forever, I would. Just barefoot, rest of my life, feet in the dirt. That's the ideal for me. Nothing can beat a barefoot walk on the beach. My feet would hurt, but I reckon I'd get used to it. My feet would become hardy and weather-worn. It's better than blisters. Yeah, the expectations of the game are certainly beat thing up, get better, beat bigger thing up, get better loot. But especially on a one-shot, having the last note be, ha ha, you got fucked over, isn't super fun. You know, that's like the last note you're leaving them with. Is this, well, you should have expected it, you know, ha ha, you got tricked by the DM. The DM is not not there to win. The DM is there to facilitate fun. I want to put the shadows really high. 70 is very high for me. Usually I pop the shadows on when it's sort of sun-based. They're sort of down here in the 40s and 30s. But because it's the atmosphere I'm going for is that sort of late night, I'm in the library when I'm not supposed to be feeling, we're going to put the shadows around here. Let's go 60 for this, and yeah, about 60 here too. Perfect. So, next step. Ooh, no, I have missed something. The inside of her mouth. Let's do that. Let's shade her teeth. Oh, they're gonna look really bright. Yeah. A little bit of teeth. If it was super close up, I'd have added little like nubbins of teeth. But so far, you know, she's from a wealthy place. They have good dental. Hobbit feet. Yep. Definitely. Yeah, right. So, next step, we're gonna do light. Now, light general. Now, this is what I call my sort of generalized lighting. That's the light caused by the primary light source of the image. And because in this, the only light source is here, the primary is going to be from here. So I'm going to pick out that yellow and then just go up slightly to get this. Now this is going to be our sort of light colour. Very, very light, but still that sort of warmer yellow lighting. We're going to go section by section. Oh, do you know what? This bit. Let's add some little rosy cheeks to her. She sat there in the dark, reading books she's not supposed to. She's going to be a bit red in the face. Let's add some blush. She's nice and she's a pink character, so adding blush is sort of extra pink. And I'm going to just lasso the section I want to blush. Taking out the schnoz. Oh. Adding bits here and there. Yeah. I'm going to grab that light blush. I'm going to go down here, far away. And as you see, what this does is cause you not to have any of this. This whole circle is going to be one colour eventually. But what using the edge of the brush does is mean you get only the gradient. And I'm going to even go in with a vague brush here. And just get out these edges. There. That creates this nice blush over her nose without a hard edge. A harder edge over the sort of this area is perfectly fine because it's a very harsh angle on the face. So that's totally fine. Here it's a bit tricky because you can't just use the edge. So we're going to go up and loosen the opacity a bit. And when you loosen the opacity of the brush, you have to be a bit more careful with where you stick things. But because it's a soft-edged brush, it's a whole lot easier. Because it'll all blend nicely. I put those little lines on her face so I would remember to do this bit, but I will actually probably go in and get rid of them when I might get rid of them when we're done. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, back to me light source. I'm gonna grab that nice yellow up a bit, nice warm light, and then grab her face, minus the shadows. Go out here with my big soft brush and just use the edge to add that. So I do this sort of by section. So this section is all one piece. You know, her fringe is sort of one piece of her. That is heavy. It's a bit too heavy. There's a lot of going back and forth because you can't quite look at it properly until you get rid of the ants. Here's another section, but it's going to be further away, slightly less bright, but it's going to have enough of a gradient that it's important to do separately. This is really close, so this is going to have a more gradient. Yeah. And what the gradient does is just reinforces the light source. If you see me continually going up into this right-hand corner, it's because I've got my navigator stationed up there, and I use the navigator so I can see the entire image at once as I work. So I know from the navigator that she's... which is why my Photoshop screen is a little bit small. It's because I use the navigator, for the most part, to move around. It means I'm not constantly zooming in and out. It gives me much more control about what I see of the image and what I don't. Yeah. It's going to make everything look nice and like bright yellow for now. But I'll go in and I can alter as we go. Oh, this finger is going to be like bright yellow. Absolutely maddeningly yellow. Because it's so close. Yeah. Same for this. And these here. As this is all sort of one object, I can go in with a gradient. Pretty harsh here. Yeah. And what that does is enable... oh, to just continually refer back to the light source. Which is why I use the navigator, is because I can then see exactly where the light source sits in every single time I use a brushstroke. Keep that in mind. Here, these are nice little foldy folds. Just grab all of that. Again, using this technique means that I have my selection tool sorted so that it only grabs one colour, doesn't matter what plane it's on, what layer it's on. Yeah. See, this bit is much faster. This section speeds up massively. Oof. Yeah, it speeds up massively because you're not doing too many brushstrokes outright. It's a whole lot of rough and tumble work. See, this is all one object, so even though I've got this bit over here and these bits here, it works out to use the gradient just on the whole thing. Same for down here, this is all practically one object, so using that gradient. Yeah. My brush is being wobbly. It's one of the other buttons. That's what it is. One of the other buttons is changing the size of my brush. Which makes sense, you know, brush size changes is a important part of the sort of process. So it doesn't surprise me that they mapped that to a shortcut key. Every single little element. I'm gonna just add a bit of gradient, even a little down there. There we go. Ooh. A little bit. Yeah, see? So that is layer 1 with the light. And look, if you get rid of that, and immediately... Oh, shit. Of course I've done that on the same layer. Of course I have. This is fine. Because the line art, the flat colour layer, is so easy to just move. So all we gotta do is change the name. That's always the case. You always got to do that once in every single image, is mess up what layer you're on. And it's probably happening a bit more because I'm obviously speaking as I work, and this is something I don't usually do. A lot of the time the nonsense I talk about and think about is just happening in my head rather than towards people. Yeah. So I don't have to say it out loud because it's the only person who's going to hear it or needs to hear it is me. You know what? We're gonna grab that colour first. Oh, there we go. Another thing about having my Photoshop set up this way is it does mean I have slightly less leeway when it comes. What it means is that I won't grab the correct color all the time because I'll be grabbing the color from a layer that is holding something else on top of it. That nice warm sun, toasty, burn down the library toasty. She knows what she did. She knows what she's doing. I'll add lovely lights in her eyes near the end so that she doesn't look like a dead, like a just walking corpse. You know, the light in the eyes is a big part of making the character sort of look alive. Yeah. My sweet little potato. Yeah, see? Much better. Get rid of it all and go back to flat and you can really see the difference. So go back to flat and there she is. Nice and flat. One shadow layer, two shadow layer. Onto the light source. So the more you do, the more 3D of an object is going to appear. Oof. Time for more tea. Are discussing amongst themselves. Right, now we're going to move on to what I like to call light effects. Or even, yeah, light effects. I'm going to start all of these with Pokra so I know what folder to put them in later. Pokra light effects. And this is, do you know what, it's not even effect. Effect is something else. Texture is what I meant. Light textures. This is how the light is going to affect certain textures. So, hair. Hair is a very strange texture. But I have a cheat. Here it is. Here's my cheat. Use the lasso tool to just create this sort of blobby shape. Yeah. Nice little tool there. We're gonna do this one too. Because using that same technique as before with the light, with the soft round brush and the sort of bright edges and the soft edges, using just the very end, we can create this nice gradient here, and I'm going to use the same light as I did before onto the hair, and it's going to look like it's catching on pieces of the strands. It's so light over there. I'm going to add a bit more. We want it to catch most places. There we go. Look at that. And you just want to do this at every point that you think it's going to catch the light. So that means sort of on the edges of hair when it's busted out towards the light source. Well, I'm going to do this here and here because this is an area which is going to catch the light quite a lot. It's going to be a lot more over this side of her head than on the other side of her head. You have to sort of learn where to put that stuff. And it doesn't always... It's not always the same for every image. But people tend to catch light over the edge of rounded objects. So this bit of her face here, this bit of her fringe, is kind of a tube. So it catches on the most towards the light source piece of the tube. Oh, search bar, love that. That's another button press, so I guess one of them is a button. One of them is the search bar. So the pieces of the hair that are most towards the light source are the pieces that are going to catch the light. So that's where you've got to start putting your light, your sort of texture. Especially when it comes to hair, that's the most important thing. Not the most important, but something to consider. Like here's a piece. That's a sausage shape right there. Good old sausage. How many memes do you think I can get into this stream? It's probably about 3 or 4 by now. Just accidentally. It's just part of my vocabulary now. Very light down here. Because these are slightly more away from the light source, they're going to be lighter. But it's still important to have them because it creates that element of softer light. And what I am going to do near the end is go in and just soften the edge of these lights here, of these shadows. Because those, it's a fire. Fire is a very soft light source. The sun tends to be fairly soft as well, unless it's an incredibly bright day. Light bulbs, super harsh light. You know, the brighter the light, the harsher the shadows. So something soft like a little fire, you know, it's not super intense. It's just going to light her up very gently. Yeah. Step 1 of textures. I also usually put the gold here. So gold, like the rest of it, catches here, but you need to go fairly white for gold. There we go. It's just going to catch along those sections. Here, that's a section it's going to catch, so the other side is going to. But this bit down here shouldn't, because it's actually in shadow. So I need to go back and put the shadows on there. But that's something you learn to do as an artist, is just constantly watching out for, oh, what did I miss? What did I change? What needs to be altered? It's very important to have that as a skill. Memeing is a fine art. It is. Very much so. I blame you for my meme language. 100%. This is your fault. You just wait until I finally make a comic page that's just loss, but D&D loss. But the day I do that, you're legally allowed to throw me off a bridge. Did you know that? Legally, it's perfectly fine. Anyone who's made a loss comic, if you spot them in public, you're legally allowed to punch them. YouTube, like, stream thing is telling me that my video resolution is not quite right. I was like, yes, I know that. You've been telling me for ages, but you also won't give me a way to fix it. Right, that's effects. Ooh, we're gonna add a few here. Just on the edge there. That's too harsh. The bigger the brush, the wider the area of the sort of gradient soft area of the brush. So when I want to gradient something large, say if I was wanting to gradient back here, I would have the biggest brush possible to make the biggest area. When I get to gradienting this back wall, I will use the massive brush to create a sort of dome of light around her, and this will be all purple. And it will create that soft glow effect from the center where the fire is. Right, I think that's all the effect light on her. So, last step, well, not last step, because what I'm going to do now is go back in and mess with this shadow, because that's going to be softer. Just slightly. Go with, again, the very edge of that soft brush. And not get rid of that line completely. Not all over the place, but just very gently drop out some of it. Yeah, create that very soft edge. Just a little bit on the face, doesn't need the harsh lighting. As I said, because of the angle of her face, it's sort of very particular. You know, I'm going to leave this harsh bit here on the nose, but this front section, soften up. We'll go in and... I like to multitask. Change the size of the brush and also the opacity at the same time. Because I'm so talented like that. I can multitask. I can't. Photoshop literally won't let you. It stops one job while you're trying to do the other. Yes, and they're lightly softer. Even along here, this edge here. Because it's so close to the focal point of the image, it's really important to get that nice and smooth. This shoulder is, again, in that focal point, close to that center. Close to that nice flicker. It's fire, it flickers, that's what it does. So it's going to have this soft effect because it's not up on pieces you forgot to erase. Go back in, light texture, there we go. See, by labeling all the files, a nice easy thing, I can go back in and fix them very simply. This arm too, I'm going to soften the light on this arm because it's another element that's super close to the light source. Yeah, I love it's sort of fun getting to bring this girl back to life because she's sort of this mix of my first D&D character with a bunch of the stuff I've learnt since then. That's what she is. She is this beautiful amalgam of everyone's first D&D character, which is very appropriate because as a character, she is learning a lot. She does not know what she's doing. She is on her first adventure. So it makes sense for her to be this very similar to my first D&D character because she is essentially doing what I was doing, which is burning things to the ground, not knowing it was bad, or knowing it was bad and almost saying nay to the consequences because you've never had to deal with consequences like that before. You know, her in universe, and as a player, you sort of figure out those consequences as you go. It takes a while to pick it up. You know, after a couple of, I'm very good at it, because I've been doing it for a long time, playing D&D. You pick up the nuance fairly quickly from a new group now, because I'm like, okay, these are the things I need to test, yay or nay to these things. If it's a yay to these things, we're all good. If it's a nay, that's fine, because it's all about learning what's good for the group. Sometimes characters have to change as you play them. It's a learning process. I think everyone has tried at one time to build that broody dude in a corner, but they're never fun to play for longer than an hour, because everyone just gets fed up with you. I had one dude once try and play a character that was essentially, it was a druid, but he wanted to spend most of his time in bird form. And his whole thing yeah, he had this whole thing where he wanted to spend all his time in bird form, which meant he couldn't speak to any of the other players, and that was a nightmare. He couldn't talk, so he couldn't say anything, so he couldn't discuss or plan, and it got in the way, and he was only there for 2 sessions. But it was still really sort of sucky. He didn't have fun. He didn't have fun. And I was trying to tell him, you're not having fun because you're not engaging in this way. And it was like, it's a role-playing game. You have to play a role. And it's like, I am playing a role. I'm a bird. I'm like, well, you're clearly not having fun being a bird. But he ended up leaving after just 2 sessions because he was bored. And it's a very similar thing. Like, you build a character who's not going to talk to anyone. Like, surprise, surprise, when you don't get to talk to anyone. Oh... You are right. As a sort of veteran DM at this point, I always try and give players enough room to start with to test the waters. And it's important as a DM to lay down those rules, but also to allow them to explore and have fun. If someone really wants to break into someone's house in the first session, or let's use the orphanage as an example. If I really wanted to break into an orphanage at the first session, the DM let me. She didn't say, no, you can't do that. She just said, okay, roll these things, please. I mean, to be fair, it was part of the plot. We had to break into this orphanage and find this child. But we didn't have to burn it down. I just thought it was a good way to get away. And then the kids were scared of me. That was the consequence. Is that the children who we saved didn't like me very much. Oh. Because I was the lady that burnt down the orphanage. And, as a DM, she was very new. She hadn't DM'd very much. And it was my first time ever actually being involved in D&D. But it was a great learning experience, because it was just, here's your actions, here's your consequences. And it was really, I learned a lot. And we got to play a great game regardless, because there was this whole accidental heist inside an orphanage. And, we had to save the kids as we were escaping, because suddenly I'd burned down their home, and I had to deal with a lot of the guilt from that, or at least my character did. I didn't, because I knew I was just enjoying myself to start with. Right, I've gotten distracted. What am I doing? Ah, yes, light effect is done. So what we're going to do now is my favourite bit, because this is super cheaty, but it makes the art look real good. Light edges. This is where your image is catching the light the most. And this is nice and zen, so I can just talk natter about D&D while on top of this. We're going to put that above the line art, and I'm going to get rid of every other colour apart from the line art. Even the background, that's going to disappear. Because I want to select colour range, grab the black. And what's this going to do is just going to grab all of the black. You see? All of it. I'm actually going to redo that because that's very thick. Select colour range, into the black. Going to go down. How far down can we go? We're going to go about here. See what that does. Yeah, that's alright. That's fine. Turn all the colours back on. I'm going to go backwards. You know what? I'll show you the image without any of the colour on it. Those are the tones, right? So those are the tones we're working with. Ooh, that is it. You can't see that. Look at that. Those are the tones. See, that's nice. You can, without the colour, you can really see where stuff is coming in and out. But turn on the light, turn on the colours, and we're back. Right, light edges. So I'm going to go in, grab the light general colour, the nice light yellow we're working with. Ooh, don't move the colour range. And just grab those edges, colour over the ones closest and most catching the light off of your light source. There's a lot of guess and check with where stuff fits, but it's the best way I've found to create that sense of .3D. So there are these little elements of yeah, look at that. This one up here. Oh, down onto her face even. Yeah, see? It's creating this nice 3D sort of element. But yeah, so anyway, back to action and consequence with the D&D stuff as a veteran. And as a veteran DM and someone who's DM'd a lot. What I like to do is let players sort of run a bit wild in the first few sessions and then slowly instill the rules. You know, you let them have fun, let them know what you can do in D&D and how much of a fun game it can be. But, you know, the further you go along, the more quickly I tend to break down on the rules. Gonna do this whole left edge because it's really close to the light source. Yeah. Cut out this little inside piece. But that's what I like to do as a DM. Every DM is different and every group is different. Some are gonna need cracking down on the rules right away or they'll just run all over you forever. And it's really difficult to learn what kind of player in a game is going to be like that unless you know the person very well. So if you're DMing for a group of entirely new people that you have basically never met, it can be really hard to judge. And in those scenarios, what I like to do is, as I said, instill the rules slower. And a great way to do this, if you get that player who just thinks everything is a joke and no consequences for anything, nothing they do ever seems to register with them, none of the consequences ever seem to register, best thing to do is to explain the consequences of their actions really slowly. So if I had this player and they had burnt down an orphanage and it was at a point where I was thinking, okay, you should know the rules by now, I've been instilling the rules, trying to instill the rules slowly to you for ages, and you aren't listening, then you start, you know, if a character's like, I'm going to burn down the orphanage, I set fire to the dresser, you start explaining to them very slowly the consequences of their actions. You tell them the dresser sets ablaze. There's a minute before anything else reacts. But then you hear the pitter-patter of very small feet come into the room and then crying as this little kid, small, pigtailed little girl, is watching all of her clothes burn. And it's stuff like that that no one can make a joke of. You just gotta hit them in the gut with the consequences of their actions. And if they don't care at that point, sorry, your player is a sociopath. At which point you should probably find a way to kick them out of the D&D. Oh, we don't want sociopath players here. I mean, yeah, sure, they could play, but if they're gonna use it as a way to just do violence that's unfun for other players, if all the other players are up to for the violence, you're just playing an evil campaign. DM, get used to it. But if the other players aren't having fun while they do their shenanigans, if it's just getting in the way of everyone else having a good time, start explaining those consequences in, like, dreaded detail. No smiling. Don't smile. If you laugh, it'll ruin it. You have to master yourself and just explain in a very flat, well, this is what happens, tone. And it's going to make your player, hopefully, have a real think about the kind of choices in-game that they're making. Hopefully. if they don't, it might take a while for it to sink in. It probably won't happen the first time. But if your player is, they'll go, oh, suddenly what they're doing isn't fun. Suddenly what they're doing is, oh, shit, whoops. The DM says this is serious, I guess it's serious. You're, as a DM, you have a lot of responsibility to control the sort of tone of how things resolve themselves. So you get a lot of power. But if you're a giggly person like me, it can be really tough to try and control that need to giggle at even really horrible things. If someone does something terrible in game, and I know there's no physical consequences and no one got hurt, my first instinct is to laugh. But I've had to try and sort of stop myself from doing that, because if I laugh, it's a signal that to the other people playing that yes, this is just funny. This isn't something to worry about. She is almost there. It's on this layer that I add the little sparkles in her eyes. Just that little where the light catches. We don't even need that whole thing. We're gonna go, yeah, just that little corner. Oh, do I need this? Lots of guess and check. So pro tips for new DMs out there is really set down your expectations sooner rather than later. I always try and have not session 0 as such. I prefer, a session 0, a chat about what kind of characters to build. I don't tend to do character building with my players, because not in person, because you can do that over messengers and stuff like that, But if I'm going to be playing a game in person, I will try and run a sort of in-person explanation of the kind of world that they'll be playing in. If there are particulars like elves don't exist, that needs explaining, so no one builds an elf and then gets real bummed out on the first session when I tell them that their elf can't be an elf. I played a game not long ago, and one of the dudes, I think I really confused him, because I had this very, very tall Goliath. I explained he was just this massive Goliath character, but this NPC that they had to get past in order to talk to someone. But rather than make him a big, broody, brutish, eat skulls for breakfast kind of Goliath, he was an acrobat, and he was a dancer. So this guy, I think, got quite confused that suddenly this Goliath in front of him wasn't trying to smash him. He was like, this is the Goliath, this is the person I can fight. And he went over, and it was like he got that stuck in his brain, and he couldn't think, oh, wait, no, this person is an acrobat and is just here at this party for a really, a good time and a chill time. And he didn't want to fight the NPC, he didn't want to fight the PC. This NPC didn't want to fight. He was not here to fight. He was here to drink and have a good time, and this PC was trying to ruin his night. And I think I confused him, because obviously it's not very in keeping with the typical rules. But I accept part of the responsibility for that, because I clearly didn't explain well enough that we wouldn't be paying attention to the rules in that manner. You know, racial traits affect some of your physical abilities, sure, but I would never make someone use a particular type of character to do something. Last few pieces. What of this skirt? Let's do that whole edge. I tend to only pick out the pieces for this sort of edge lighting at points where it's facing towards the light source. And sometimes what I'll do in pieces like this is backlight, but she's in an area where the backlight is going to be bouncing off this back wall and coming towards this way. So the backlight is there's going to be a bit down here, just in this corner, but not a whole lot, to be honest. So doing backlight is sort of less important. So I'm going to reselect that and a few of these. Yeah, as a DM, it's hard to balance. Yeah, not all Goliaths are punch boys. That's true. I don't like having punchy boy Goliaths. But that's me as a person and me as a DM in that I like to talk and I like the talking side of it much more than I like the punching side. And I'm always very clear with that whenever I am about to DM a game. When I'm telling people, hey, I'm running, who wants in, this is the kind of game I run. Because if you're there for the punching, you're in the wrong game, my friend. Wrong game. You know, if a character's really into punching, I'm just the wrong DM for them, that's fine. If a character really wants to be evil, I'm probably the wrong DM for them. That's fine. What's important, really, and that's a big thing that D&D is really about, is communication. If you communicate these things to your DM, then they'll be a lot happier, and you'll be a lot happier, and it saves everyone time if you just tell everyone what you're looking for out of a game. That is too bright. I don't like it. Points like this, what I like to do is cheat. Once again, cheating. Just going to go in with my massive eraser. Oh. We want soft edges, please. Soft edge brush, there we go. Big eraser, soft edge brush. Drop them out. There we go. These are even too harsh right now. What I will do is just drop them back a bit when I mess with the line art layer. Pull that down to sort of 80%. Pull this down to about 80. Oh. It's all about figuring out what looks best. That's the big thing. What's the nicest to look at? What's going to show off the image the best? Here we have... Because the light source is sort of above, I'm going to have the top bit show, but not the bottom. That's fine. Look at that. There, now her nose is visible. Right. Back to, yeah, light edges, back to the brush on here. Gonna add some little, just some little, like, sparkles in her eyes. Because it's a fire, there's going to be a few more of these than usual. Because fires flicker, so you get little things. Right, I do believe one last thing. I'm going to do the edge light on here. So if I... Yeah, I've still got that selected. Sweet. Same colour. Boom. Bright jewelly tone there. Now she's got a nice little fireball in her hand. And because the edge is nice and is that colour, it's much more sort of effecty than it would be otherwise. But that's what I like to do with all effects, is have this bright edge. Yeah, look at that. Just fix a few things. Look at that. Perfect. And I do believe, we're gonna do new layer, Pokra, and backlight. That's what it's gonna be. Backlight. Now, backlight on here is, in this image, is gonna be especially strange because it's a fire. So the backlight it's a bouncing light, that's what it is. Usually I would use a kind of blue for this, but for this I'm actually going to go in with a slight yellow. And backlight is supposed to be, it's incredibly fine, incredibly light. So I'm just going to grab all, have this big soft brush moment, and it's going to look real intense from here. Because obviously it's bouncing off that back wall. We're going to use a soft brush with a eraser, just get the edges in, that's all you need, and then drop it back a bunch so it's barely visible. I'm gonna go 28, there we go, that's nice. What that does is just create that bouncing light so that eventually when I've painted the rest of this room, it will all merge in. My plan for next time, so this is her done. This is her, as finished as she will be. So my plan for next time is I'm going to do all of the line art fixing and all of the flat colours before I start, so that when I'm actually so that we'll actually be at colouring before I begin. Because that way, you guys are watching something a little more engaging than just flat. Me pointing at things and putting colours in them. Which, you know, if that's your jam, I have fun. I'll probably go up and clean some of the stuff up on her as well. But for now, that's as much as she is complete. So yeah, I hope you guys had fun, the people that popped in and out. This is obviously going to be up on YouTube for as long as it needs to chill. Well, let's fuck around with this. I love this panel. Just messes with everything. It's gonna look so intense. Da 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 da. Brighten it a bit. Why not? I like to do this near the end, is just go in and take out the grey elements that happen when you're merging colours. It just happens. But yeah, so next time it should be Don't know when, but I'm going to clean up all of these panels, and we're going to get to do a lot of the background lighting, because she's easy enough, because she's simple, she's right here, she's right next to the light source. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Feel free to come along to, you know, my Tumblrs, my Instagram. My Instagram got a whole load of new followers recently, and I don't know who they are. But they're lovely people, they seem. It's nice. So yeah, I will see you then. 2 hours, 16 minutes is not bad for one whole woman. A whole ass woman. So I will see you soon. I'll announce it on my Tumblr when I'm planning on doing another one, and I'll do the same thing as I did this time, which is sort of announce a kind of half an hour before and then a when I begin, just so that people see it. But yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye!